it's Alejandro for the Audio Brewers. In this video, we're going to explore the mix that we have done for one of the demos for our Signals Green library. We have chosen this demo because it's a song that we have composed directly in Dolby Atmos. We didn't pass through stereo stems, we just composed directly from Ambisonics, which contains spatial properties, to a Dolby Atmos mix. So I believe it's a very interesting opportunity to see how we have created music skipping stereo completely. This video is going to be divided in some parts because I want to split what we've done at the musical level with our sample library, and then we're going to explore what we've done at production level, which is where we have positioned each of our objects and beds and all the things that are related to Dolby Atmos. So at musical level, we can see that we have 6 MIDI tracks, and we're just going to explore one by one to see what we've done here. So the first thing I want to point out is that because this song is in E minor, we have selected in our Signals Green the E minor with a minor dominant. That way, no matter what key we press, we are always going to get a chord coherent to E minor. Let's just give it a try. So for example, if I press an E, you get an E minor. So no matter which E you press, you will always get a different type of E minor. So if I press, for example, its dominant, which will be a B minor because we have selected a minor dominant. No matter which key you press, it's always going to work for E minor. So that's the beauty of our Signals engine, that you just select your key, select if it's major or minor, and then whatever key you press will always gravitate toward the key you have selected. Okay, so now let's explore what we've done here. So this track is just a mattress sort of thing that just ties everything together. So in this track, we have like an ambience kind of mattress. Let's hear how it sounds. Okay, so now let's explore what we've done here. You can see that there are 3 articulations selected. Each articulation goes to a different layer. So if you go to the layers, you can see how it works. So the first thing to notice is that CC1 is controlling the volume of these 3 layers. So if I move CC1, you can see that there is a blend happening between the layers, which is quite interesting. Okay, so we also see that our first layer has no effects going on. Our second layer has a pass filter, and our third layer has a 3-band equalizer. And if we explore these effects, we can see that the pass filter has a sequencer that is affecting the high pass. And the equalizer has a sequencer that is affecting the gain on the third band. These sequencers are rhythmically tied to your DAW, so no matter the tempo, it will always work. Okay, so you can hear that there is this motion happening thanks to the sequencers and thanks to the blending that I am creating with CC1. Now let's explore our next track, which contains our multi-sample paths so that we can just play whatever we want. Okay, so I have created an arpeggio here. And this arpeggio has a low pass, which is tied to our CC1. So as the melody grows, the arpeggio becomes like more in your face kind of thing. So now let's go to our Ginjer track, which is a track we have created to get like a metal type of sound. And it sounds like this. Okay, so as you can hear, there is a very distorted sound. We have chosen two of our grainy articulations, and each of them is going to its own layer. And each of the layers has a different effect. There are so many effects happening here. And finally, there is a gate here, which is creating this ta-ta-ta-ta-ta type of effect. So no matter what I press, you always have this type of sound. There is also a delay happening. I could have used Contact's delay, but because Contact's delay is in stereo, and we're creating this demo specially, so we have inserted an auxiliary group just using our A-B delay just to give a little bit more of depth. We're gonna go through that on the next part of our video. Next, we have our Shorties channel. So as you can hear for this channel, again, we have a couple of articulations selected, and we also have a gate so that we also have this ta-ta-ta-ta type of sound. We have just used 3 slots from our effects just to create this saturated type of sound. So when you hear it again, finally, we have also tied the volume of our layers to our CC1. So when I move it, you have the blending happening. If I see each of the layers, you see that layer 1 goes down and layer 2 comes in. So this is how the transition happens. Okay, next we have this interesting track, which is an effect I created using our fresco pad. So the fresco pad is a pad that we have created that allows you to record up to, I think, half an hour, of motion. And then this motion can be assigned to any of our 4 frontal knobs. So if I listen to how it sounds right now, so it's a very interesting kind of thing. And if I wanted to change this recording, all I have to do is just start playing and touch the fresco pad and move it around. But I don't want to do that right now because I have recorded my motion for this specific song. But you can hear that I'm only using the Y-axis, and that axis is assigned to this knob here. I could have also changed which knobs go in front quite easily, just pressing Shift and click and just assigning it. And finally, I have this channel, which is a wild choir. So this channel also uses our fresco pad, and for this channel, I wanted to achieve like a choir type of sound, and this is how it sounds. Okay, it sounds pretty convincing. This choir is obviously not a choir, it's just synthesized sounds. The way I achieved this was using a couple of articulations, and they are using an LFO on the pitch so that you have this vibrato kind of sound. and then a bunch of effects, out of which one is the formant, so that I can control the sound of kind of the throat talking. But the interesting thing is that this formant, I am controlling it with my Fresco pad again. So, you know, when you move, you know, you always have this type of sound, but because it's controlled with the Fresco pad, it goes with my song. Finally, the CC1 is tied to the general volume of the patch. So as the song happens, the choir becomes a bit louder. And this is how I have created all my tracks. Okay, so now I'm just going to freeze these tracks to save resources and go to my mixing process. Okay, so for our mixing process, let's explore what we have done here with each of our tracks. So here you have the purple tracks, which are our MIDI tracks. And so when I press play, you can see that I am using the raw ambisonics patches. So I have to decode these ambisonic signals. So for decoding these ambisonic signals, I have sent each of the tracks to an ambisonics group track. That way, it is Nuendo, the one that is in charge of decoding the track. So basically, this track, which has contact, is going to this track, which is decoding contact, into my channel set. I could have avoided creating all these group tracks by just using our AB decoder, but because I wanted to create this demo as stock as possible, we just use Nuendo's decoder. So basically, all you have to do is use the standard panner and then send the track to an ambisonics track. Finally, this is the track that is going to give you the sound. Also, I have created an Atmos mix by using the ADM authoring for Atmos and the setup assistant. I just added my channel with the renderer and added a bed. And then I routed all my group tracks to the bed. That was the first thing I did. And finally, I started choosing which of my tracks were going to become objects. So for the first track, which is my arpeggio, I created an object for this arpeggio, which is this object. And the cool thing about having this as a separate object is that I was able to control the arpeggio size on the spatial field, which is an interesting concept. So when you inspect what's happening here with our panning from the very beginning of the arpeggio, you can see that the arpeggio is happening all around us, above us, behind us, and everything. And as the sound develops, the arpeggio becomes smaller until the very end, which is like right surrounding us very closely. You can notice the difference on how it sounds when it's far away versus when it is just much closer to you. Okay, so now let's go to our second track, which is this increasingly. Okay, so for this track, because it's just pads happening, I didn't create an object, so I just sent it to my standard bed, which is here. So it just sounds in my standard bed. There's nothing special going on. Let's go to our next track, which is the Ginjer sound, which is an object again. I have created an object for this track, which is this object. Okay, so this track is very interesting because I have pushed the track above me. So when I listen to it, so while in stereo you cannot really appreciate the height of the object, when you're listening to this specific track in a 7.1.4 system, you will hear that this cha-cha-cha-cha is happening above your head, which is a cool sensation. There is no automation happening. And there is a send from this track to my auxiliary track, which contains the A/B delay. So my A/B delay is it's got a very basic configuration. I'm just high passing whatever is above 1 kilohertz, so that it accentuates the high frequencies. And then another cool thing that I'm doing is I am canceling the mid information. So the delay is always happening on the sides, on the front and the back, and above and below. So there is no mid information in this delay, which is a very interesting type of concept. This is how it sounds. You can hear that without the mid information, you have a different sort of color happening. And when you're listening to it in a 7.1.4 system, you will hear that the delay is like very, very wide kind of from you, which is a nice sensation. And also I have rotated vertically this delay so that it has just like a different position from the original sound. So this is what I've done on the delay. Now let's explore this channel, the Shorties. So this channel is super interesting because for this channel, I have created an object, which is the Shorties object. And for this object, I just went completely experimental on the position of these Shorties hits. You can see that as the track goes, this object just moves all around you. It rotates vertically, horizontally. It just rotates through every angle. And this is how it sounds. So it sounds pretty cool because I am not only rotating it in the Z axis, but also I'm rotating in the X, in the Y, I'm changing its size. As you can see, it just goes all around you. It's a cool type of effect. And this Shorties channel has also been sent to my delay, so that the delay just bounces these sounds depending on where they exist in the spatial field. Okay, and now let's just explore our choir, which is going again to our standard bed. And there wasn't much going on here. So for our choir, we just added the frequency plugin just to control a little bit the frequencies so that it sounds a little bit more voice-like. So it's a very simple approach. And finally, let's just check on our Tumultuous track, which is an interesting track because it contains all the bass information. Okay, so our Tumultuous track is going again to our standard bed, but I am doing something interesting here, which is I have created an auxiliary track that goes to the LFE. The reason why I've done that is because Dolby Atmos doesn't send anything to the LFE. And you have to be really careful in music when you are using your LFE channel, because as per Dolby's design, whenever you are down mixing a Dolby Atmos mix to stereo, the LFE channel is discarded. So whatever you are sending to the LFE, if somebody is listening to it in stereo, they will not hear the LFE channel. So the lack of LFE channel should not ruin your mix. So I'm using the LFE channel just to add a little bit more of pump on this bass whenever I am listening to this mix on my 714 setup. Right now, you're listening to this mix in stereo, and you're not listening to this LFE. But if you were to listen to this mix in a 714 setup, you will hear a bit more pump. On my renderer track, because this video is made for YouTube and is in stereo, I have downmixed this to stereo so that you can hear properly. Because if I were using my 714, you will be listening just to the front, left, and right, and you will be missing all the information that is going all around. So the cool thing about the renderer for Dolby Atmos is that you can downmix your mix to different channel configurations so that you can be sure that before exporting your track, it will sound right using different surround formats. So if I press play right now, you can see all the objects here and the way they move on the spatial field. And you can see our bed, and you can see that the output is in stereo. But if I were to use my 714 setup, the meters will display like all the channels, and you will listen to it in a 714 format, which we want to avoid because we're in stereo. And finally, we have our binaural mix. Our binaural mix is similar to the stereo mix, but it contains extra metadata, which is where your objects are going to be binaurally. They can be close, they can be mid, or they can be far from the listener. And the way you do that is you go to the ADM, and here is where you choose each of your objects and how they behave when they sound binaurally. So I have used my arpeggio object to be near, my Ginjer object to be near, and my Shorties to be far. So binaurally, it sounds like this. And in stereo, it sounds like this. So the sound does change a little bit, and it will automatically adapt to whatever your listeners are using. So if they're using a stereo system, automatically the Atmos decoder is going to go to stereo. And if they're using headphones, automatically the Atmos decoder is going to use the binaural. So this is the cool thing about Atmos, that you just create one mix and it will adapt to whatever your listener is using. And finally, we'll go to our loudness part, which is for delivering, you have to make sure that your integrated loudness is at or below -18. So for doing that, all you do is just use your full setup and listen to the track from the very beginning. Okay, so you can see that my track here is at -18.4. It is a proper loudness. Just make sure that when you listen to this track, you're not using any downmix, so you're using your whole Atmos setup. And finally, if you were too loud or too low, what you could do is create a VCA track and just attach all your objects and your bed to that track, and that way you can control the loudness of your track. And that's it. This is my mix, it's ready. And for exporting it, all I will have to do is just go into my ADM and export my ADM file. If you want to explore this project, you can download it from the link below. Of course, you will need Nuendo 12 or above. And you will, of course, need Signals Green, because if you don't have it, then you will not be able to load the tracks. But if you have both, you will be able to just open the project, explore, see what I did. And of course, you can even make my mix better, because I am sure that there are many things that can be done better. I'm going to play my demo once more, and with that, say goodbye to you. Thanks for watching.